Darlings, how the heck are you? You're back on That's Helpful with me, Ed Stott, and it is such a joy to join you here for another week of self-improvement that won't make you feel shit about yourself because it actually works. Now, tell me this, have you ever felt like the mum you thought you'd be and the mum you actually are couldn't be further apart? Yeah, me too. Well, Victoria Vanstone thought she'd be a chilled out, barefoot earth mum, but a few years in, she found herself shouting, feeling out of control, and in complete desperation, literally paying her kids to go to bed. I mean, it doesn't sound like a bad idea to me even. But all jokes aside, that's when she realized something had to change. You might know Victoria from her work around sobriety and motherhood. She's been sharing that story for years, but now she's turned her focus to parenting itself and what happens when you hit your limit and decide it has to look different. She gave herself a whole year of what she calls mumming, where she tried anything and everything to be a better mum. I'm talking Reiki, rage walks, sound healing, breath work, parenting courses, you name it, she did it. In this episode, she's sharing it all, what helped, what didn't, and what she wishes she knew sooner. So if you're here right now at the end of your tether, unsure of where to start with becoming a calmer, more contented mum, you're in the right place. Victoria's going to talk you through the big lessons from her year of experiments so you can skip the weird stuff and start with the stuff that actually works. You're going to love this conversation. Victoria's honesty is next level, and by the end of this episode, you'll feel seen, less alone, and like you finally know where to start. Before we dive in, just a quick note. In this conversation, we're mostly talking about mothering. We don't get deep into the double standards, how the pressure to be better, quote unquote, so often lands on women and not always on dads. I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room. We do touch on it briefly, but that's a whole other episode, and I just want to name it from the start. All right, darlings, enjoy. So, the book, you say it's not about perfect parenting. It's always about always coming back. What do you mean by that?
At the beginning of the book, I tell a story about how my parents left me by the side of a road when I was a kid. And I stood there with a knowing that my parents were coming back. And I think it was a good summary or analogy of parenting in itself, that one experience, because I don't know whether anything else matters, but just knowing that your parents are there for you and that they're always coming back and that they believe in you could be enough. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. Because I failed. Yeah, I think it's true. And it's basically saying, unconditional love, if that can be the backbone of your parenting, then maybe that's enough to get us through. Because I know that when my kids were, the age of yours, when they were really little, I felt shame and guilt was kind of buzzing around me like a kind of annoying March fly on a day-to-day basis, because I was reading all the books, I was doing all the work, and I was comparing myself to all of these people who, seemed to be really, really good mums, like mega mums. And that's what I thought I was going to naturally become. And I ended up just reading the books and just feeling terrible shame because I couldn't achieve what these other women were achieving. And I felt like I was a failure and I wasn't good enough. And what I've learned on my parenting journey is, I have, as most mums do, a very good gut instinct as to when I'm making the right and wrong choices. And I've never really trusted that until like years into my parenting journey. But I think I've written this book for those mums that question their own parenting, and to tell them that your unconditional love will be enough to get you through, because it has been me. I'm not saying there aren't their ups and downs. I'm just not that sort of bliss ball excreting earth mother that I thought I was going to be. And that's been quite a shock for me. And so I thought it was a really good story to say, look, I haven't become the mum that I expected to be, but that's okay.
I really really hear you in that, because I think when you become a mum, and especially now, you know, like Instagram's feeding you everything, Facebook's feeding you everything, TikTok, I mean, I'm not even going near the thing, but I am terrified about what that's feeding you. But everything, you know, like everything's out to get us. We're doing the worst possible thing if we're doing this, but don't do this either, but don't do that. Whoa, don't do this. Oh my God, you do that. It's like, what? It's absolutely wild. And I think at the moment, like the mum guilt is supercharged. Absolutely supercharged. You know, the conversations, obviously for me in this period of my life, I'm meeting a lot of new mums because like that's who's around in the day, and they are great people. But the conversations we have a lot is like, I find myself saying on repeat, oh my gosh, did you just hear yourself? Like, that's okay. You're allowed to do that. Like what? So example, this morning I went to a gym class. It's like a gym class where all the babies get thrown in the middle and they just like play around and you can work out around them. It's great. But I went to that, and one of the other mums was saying to me, I felt really guilty this morning about not going to playgroup and about coming here instead. And I was like, girl, your baby doesn't give an shit about where you are as long as she's with you. But we're made to feel like if we're not doing the absolute most and we're not strung out and we're not absolutely exhausted and we don't feel like complete shit, that we're not doing enough. Like that, but that's just not the case, is it?
No, well, what is enough? Like, that's what it feels like when you have young kids. It's like you're sleep deprived anyway. So your probably emotions are a bit all over the place, but you still feel like it's not okay to break down or feel, or even sometimes tell anybody how you're actually feeling. I mean, for me, I was a massive party animal all of my life, right? So I was a massive binge drinker, and my moment for me of change was when the party girl met the mum, and I had to make this huge transition into somebody that drank and to be somebody that didn't drink. And part of that was that we're not told, or we're not prepared for motherhood in some way. I don't know whether there's some sort of course we could do or a license that we could get,
Nope.
but I certainly wasn't prepared for all of the alone time. Actually, I know I had a baby with me a lot of the time, but I'd gone from being a party animal out all the time, you know, finding myself on grubby dance floors at 2 a.m. and having what I thought was a brilliant time. It probably was a bit abandoning of myself, but at the same time, it was what was considered to be done before you have children. And then I had a baby, and I had somebody that was reliant upon me for survival, which is quite overwhelming in itself. And I was stuck at home all of a sudden with, in an apartment in Sydney with beige walls. All I had to think about was milk and mashing up bloody apples. And I found it very dull. I'm going to be honest with you. I loved my baby very, very much, but I'd gone from the bright lights to the lights being very, very dimmed. And all I felt was stress and overwhelm on a day-to-day basis. And it was hard to get out there again and understand who I was socially, who I was as a mum, how to keep some identity, because I think that happens as well. When you become a mum, you kind of hand yourself over to the life of the child. And it's really a difficult time to navigate because you still want to be yourself, yet everything is telling you that maybe yourself isn't good enough. And it's taken me probably 13 years, my eldest is 13 now, to understand that I was striving for something that is never reachable. And those goals, those fantasies where I'm going to be this perfect mum, it just doesn't come to fruition, because I thought before you had children, you just pop them out and then you mold them into people that you want them to be, like people that hold doors open for old people, or, give up their seats for pregnant women on buses and, do all the right things. But it turns out that they become these characters of their own that you really don't have, or you have a bit of an influence on them, but they do things that you don't expect, and it can be very, very confronting. And it's a day-to-day struggle to understand what is right and what is wrong. And I think for any mum out there, trying to trust your gut and learn that, parenting is sometimes fucked. If you don't mind me saying that. I think if we can accept that our fails and it just generally being quite hard work sometimes, and the fact that we just come back and keep doing it is sometimes enough in itself.
Yeah, and I really like this idea that the best mums fail. And that's how to be a really good mum, is to just fail all the time. Because I think if you're failing, you're pushing, you're trying, you're present. And it also kind of infers that you give a shit, like if you feel like you're failing, you really give a shit. And I'm not encouraging people to feel shame or guilt or any of those shitty things that we as women are made to feel that men are not made to feel. Mm-hmm. But I do think there is something in failing your way into becoming the best mum you can be. And accepting that there's no other way to go about it, right?
Yeah, because it means you're striving. You're always striving for something better. And, I was shouting a bit too much. It's one of the reasons I started out on my year of trying to get better. I was shouting too much. I was throwing plastic cups at walls. I was breaking inanimate objects around the house. I think there's a whisk in the garden and a broken broom on the deck. So I was like a lunatic sometimes, and I knew it wasn't right, and I knew that I could do better. But if I hadn't noticed those things, I totally agree with you. It would have meant that I wasn't conscious or aware of my own behaviors, which, as well as since I've given up drinking, I have to be really conscious, because I have no numb out. I have no escape from parenting in the evening or having a glass of wine. So I'm really in my emotions really in real time. And that means that I have to find the answers to my problems. It's a habit that I definitely suffer from, is that I'm always trying to find the answers to the questions that are spinning around in my head about drinking and about parenting and about everything else in life.
So you talk there about like kind of having this creeping realization of the fact that you were not quite the mum that you wanted to be. Like you, as you say, felt like you were a bit shouty. I mean, I think we're all a bit shouty. Yep. You felt like you weren't dealing with this rage that you had, and like something had to give. What was the kind of moment in which you were like, okay, I'm going to work on this. We're going to do a year of mumming. Let's go. Something has to change. Like, take me back to that time when you actually thought, no, I'm going to do something about this.
I think there are no rock bottom moments for most parents. And it was an amalgamation of all of the things that were going wrong. I wasn't following through with any of my, consequences. I was stuffing Kinder eggs in their faces to keep them quiet while I was going around the shops. I was threatening that the headmaster would come round and tell them off. Like, I was just doing the classic parenting fails. I was even paying my children to go to bed at one stage.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like...
Hey, I can see that. I mean, I only have a 1-year-old, but if she'd just take my cash, life would be a lot easier.
Totally. So I knew that some of the things that I was doing were probably, if I had ever put any of them online, people would be like, that is not okay.
And I think maybe you were feeling like this butting up against your identity, right? You felt like you were going to be this earth mother, as you say, and that's how you saw yourself. But in actual fact, what you saw around you in your behavior was the complete opposite. And I think it's so hard to ignore things that go against how we see ourselves as people, right?
Well, I grew up with a shouter. So when I was in trouble, my mum used to shout. Okay. And I remember as a kid, it never made me change my behavior. It just made me think, I hate you, stop shouting at me. So I knew that was wrong. And I knew that I didn't want to be that as a mum. So I was like, what are some ways that I can get better at this? Because I'm failing right now and it doesn't feel good. And I'm turning into my mum and I'm being an ogre and stomping up and down, trying to get them to bed. And, it was all just getting a little bit too much. And then somebody put a flyer in my hand at school while I was, shouting at my little 4-year-old at the time who was wearing diving shoes going into school because I couldn't find any shoes for him. So I think she'd seen me and she was like, oh my God, this woman needs help. And she handed me a flyer, which was for a free parenting class at my local school. And she was like, Vic, why don't you come? I was like, all right, okay, this is it.
Why do you say that to me?
No reason. What's the problem? Yeah, so I started that year with learning some new skills of how to be a better mum. And I continued that in various ways throughout the year. I went a bit woo-woo and did some breathwork classes. I started an exercise regime. I secretly learned the Thriller dance and performed it at a Halloween party. And one of the best things that I did, which I highly recommend, was run away. which really helped my parenting, actually. I ran away. I saved some money, and I booked myself a ticket to Italy for a week, where I sort of reset my parenting dials and came back trying to be a little bit more different and a little bit more calm, which definitely helped my parenting. It doesn't have to be Italy. It could be, where's that, Cuba PD, or one of these, one of these Australian towns. You just need to get away to the outback or wherever you need to go. It could actually be the car park at Aldi if you want it to be. But getting away and resetting those parenting dials, no matter how you do it, it is so eye-opening and refreshing, because I was able to see all the places where I was going wrong just by having a bit of space between myself and my children. I have 3 children, so it does get a bit intense sometimes. And I found some space just to be me again and to know what I liked and what I enjoyed. And I sometimes felt that my whole personality was absorbed into the children. And I needed to find a piece of me again to be able to function and be myself and learn who I am as a mother and as a woman, nearing her 50s. I'm 48 now. So things changed for me a lot in that year. And it was really lovely to be able to write about it and share, the ups and downs of finding out who I am as a parent, even if it is a bit later as my children grow up.
So I'm really excited to kind of get into some of the things that you did do in this year of mumming, which is excellent, by the way. I just love it. I think to have the ability to step back and think, okay, right, things need to change. I'm going to commit this time to it. Is such again, it's like that. It's that striving thing, isn't it? It's, you actually give a shit. You want things to change, but to think, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to reset, and I can change. To hear your story is quite refreshing, because I think so many of us get caught up in this cycle of like just chasing life that we forget that we can actually go, hang on a minute, just pump the brakes for a little second. I need some time to recoup and start again. Do you think that was the most profound thing? Like, I want to talk through some of the little bits that you did in a minute, but do you think that was one of the most profound realizations, that actually I do have the power to kind of pump the brakes and steer this where I want to go rather than just chasing after it?
I knew, because I'd been through this drinking, not drinking scenario. Yeah. I knew that I, as a human, was capable of evolving. I know that sounds a bit weird, but I thought, you are who you are. And when I gave up drinking, I realized that as a human, I was capable of evolving in my own lifetime, which sounds strange. And I didn't do it on my own. I had a lot of therapy, but I found that, okay, right, I've done that. What else do I need to change? What else needs fixing? And how can I, it's almost like a kind of kindness and wellness thing. It's like, how do I be kind to myself? How do I create an environment where everybody's going to be a little bit more happy and perhaps a little bit more chilled? And how am I going to be happy? And how's that going to ripple through into my children? I'm a cycle breaker when it comes to alcohol within my family, but I haven't been a cycle breaker when it comes to shouting. So it was time to address that. And other things will probably pop up throughout my life. So I am very much a person who believes in therapy and reaching my hand out when I need help. And I've done that in this book, as I did in my first book. Was there are times when I wobble and I don't know the answers, but I definitely, goddamn sure I'm going to reach out and find them.
Yeah. And I think for anybody to listening to this, like, I know hearing your story, it really resonates with me that sometimes we kind of forget that we have that choice and we can stop and reset and reconsider and change things. Change is always possible. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling very heard and very seen by Victoria's story, I hope that you hear, this and see that you too can, make some changes, and it doesn't have to be drastic. It doesn't have to be massive, and failing is the best part of the process. So if people are listening, I kind of want to talk them through some of the most useful things that you found out. So you started with this parenting course, and what were the things there that kind of planted the seed and helped you to see that you could make big, simple change that could have like big ripple effects in your life? What were some of the major things that you learned there? It
was actually just implementing some strategies. I never had any strategies before. I never had any ways of, I didn't know what I was doing. I think that's the honest answer, is that I didn't have any parenting strategies in place whatsoever. So I didn't have any discipline. I would just shout too much. I didn't have any tools in my toolbox at all. And what that parenting course gave me was some strategies, which was this countdown strategy. So the children are being chaotic. They're not kind of doing what I'm asking. I would count down 3, 2, 1, and then have a consequence if they didn't follow through. And it was something like you can't have your pocket money, or that play date's going to be cancelled. Just really simple things, but things that they want, that, they're going to change their behavior for. And I found that it worked. I always heard these things and seen reels of mums, these perfect mums that I was always comparing myself to, putting these strategies in place, but I'd never actually done it because it all seemed too hard. But actually, when I started to do it, I realized it may be hard at the beginning, but it was actually in the long run going to make everything so much easier. And the problem with my parenting was that I was putting band-aids on behavior. And I was saying, like, stop doing that and have a chocolate instead. And I had lots of really bad parenting habits that were hard to break. But once I'd broken them, I understood that, I was tearing the band-aid off. It was going to be painful for a little bit. But in the long run, the situation was going to be much better, because my children would have more of an understanding of the rules and more of a respect for me, in fact, for giving them those rules. So there was that strategy, and it was also the classic reward system, the stars on the fridge. That worked amazingly well until it didn't. But what I've learned with that is that I try not to have guilt even when I feel like something's gone really well, because that works for a while. Like, the kids are enjoying putting gold stars on the fridge for a while. But as mums know that are listening to this, it's sometimes not sustainable, because we get busy and we forget about the stars and we run out of stickers, and then we're on holiday for a week and all the rules go out the window. And it's this constant re-strategizing of my parenting all the time, which has helped me kind of move forward from my shame and guilt about being a bad mum, because I still make mistakes. I'm saying is that I've evolved to a certain point, but I take steps backwards all the time. But again, that means I have to find other ways to make my life and their lives manageable.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And I guess that kind of seeing the fact that you're failing as a point of success is that, okay, I've used that, we tried that, not working anymore. That's okay. And when you let go of the guilt and the shame, you're able to move forward a lot better and come up with new strategies that are going to work. And instead of like kind of falling for that sunk cost fallacy, or the fact that you are a bad mum because you can't make this system work, it's like, no, you're not a bad mum because you can't make the system work. The system is the bad thing that needs to go. We need to find another system. And I think because it's all tied up in like mum guilt and, shame and rage, and which I want to get to later on, it's really hard to kind of, as mums, sometimes think, okay, that's not working, let's move on, because you feel like you failed personally rather than the system's not failed. Like, you feel like you're a bad person because you can't implement this one thing, when actually it's just not something that will work for you.
Yeah, totally. And the systems are meant to fail. Like, sometimes if it doesn't work, we can just laugh about it and carry on, and it be a mess and everyone cry, and, we'll get over it and have a family meeting and everything be okay for another day. I must tell you the story here. We were all right with swearing, are we?
We're great with swearing.
Okay, good.
The only reason I slipped into doing the SH1T, because I'm trying not to swear about around my baby, because she's literally repeating everything I say, and I don't want her first word to be fuck. So now I find myself like censoring when I don't want to, because I have a potty mouth, but I don't want her first word to be fuck. So because she repeats me all the time, so I have to I've started saying I'm the person who now says fluff instead of fuck, and I hate it. But yes, in short, swearing is allowed.
Okay, I've got to tell you the story. It's in the book, but it's kind of a pivotal moment for me and my parenting journey. I was in the car park at school pickup. I'd got there a bit early. I'd had a really rubbish day, and I was feeling completely overwhelmed and sad, and like I wanted to run away, and just feeling all the feels. And a friend of mine, my friend Nat, God bless her, she knocked on the window. She must have seen me, and she handed me a paper bag with a bar of chocolate in it. And she just didn't say anything and waved and then walked away. And I opened the bag and there was a little Post-it note in there. And all it said was, parenting is fucked. And I was like, oh my God, that is the best thing I've ever heard in my whole life. She didn't tell me what to do. She didn't say you should try this or you should do that or this isn't right or why are you crying? Or she didn't ask me any questions. She just silently handed me this note. I've still got this note. Like, I keep it close to my heart because that is a message that we don't hear enough. Sometimes, especially with more than one kid, it's just fucked. And that's not something that you're doing wrong. It just means that the chaos is overwhelming and that it's going to go on. It's never going to stop. It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because that's just how it is sometimes. There is so much to do as a parent nowadays, not only as a mum, but as a working mum. So not only have we got like jobs outside of the house, we've got another full-time job at home. So it's like we're trying to combine these lives all the time and trying to run the lives of these little people and our husbands and everything else. And it's too much. It's too much for anybody to handle. So no wonder we have breakdowns and feel guilty all the time. But the fact is sometimes it's just fucked. And that's okay.
Parenting is fucked. I agree. I mean, I've only done a year of it and people keep saying to me, oh my God, that's flown, hasn't it? I'm like, no, I felt every fucking day of it. 365 days. It has been the longest year of my life and I have absolutely loved it. But on days I have thought, oh my God, I cannot do this. I have no idea how much longer I can operate at this level because my God, it is unreal. And I've only done a year of it, so I bow down to 13 years, but my God, it's a lot.
I think I describe it as life affirming and soul destroying in one sip. It's about right, isn't it? It's true though, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's so true. It is so true. Life affirming and soul destroying. Absolutely true. And I think, so from I want to get onto some of your tactics in a minute because they are super helpful. But I think from the outside looking in, like for me, for a long time, I thought, I don't think I really want kids. Like, it looks shit. But I didn't understand the life affirming part of it. Yeah. And I think until you're in it, you don't really, you hear people having these conversations and you don't really understand why people get themselves into it because you don't see the payoff. You don't feel the payoff because they're not things that you can measure and write down on paper. But it is that, I've felt the biggest, most deepest feelings I've ever felt in my life over the last year. And it's been the most phenomenal year of my life, but it's also been the hardest, the absolute hardest. And I think that's what people don't understand is that it's this balance between being absolutely sucky. So it sucks so hard and being the most beautiful, profound thing you've ever done in your life. It's absolutely wild. It's wild. It
is wild.
Yeah, my mind has been blown by it.
Yeah, we wouldn't change it. Like, we love it. Like, I'm not saying that. And I'd like to be a negative voice. I want to be like the anti-expert. I think that's my kind of job here now is like in this realm is to be like, look, we've got so many people out there telling us what to do. It's coming at us from every bloody angle nowadays, isn't it? Like, I can't do anything without somebody telling me I'm failing. I mean, even the lady at the checkout counter, you know, when you have a baby in a sling or anything like that, they've always got some advice for you. It's like,
so
you know, it's quite overwhelming. And I think we don't spend enough time trusting ourselves. I certainly didn't trust myself because I thought everybody else at my mother's group was doing a better job than me. They looked better than me. They, you know, they were in their spandex, whereas I was kind of in some, you know, stained top with my trousers on backwards. So I think some people just look like they're doing it better than you, and actually they're not either. True. So yeah, don't worry about it.
100%. So you started with this parenting course and that kind of gave you these really practical tips, and you kind of started to see, oh, actually, if I change things, some stuff does actually work in amongst all the failures and learning that the failures are part of the process. But one of the things that you tried that was kind of surprising to me that you actually found was really helpful was like a parenting app with guided de-stress audio that you listen to in the pantry. Why did you find that helpful?
I think it was just because I enjoyed hiding from the children. I think that's kind of, it's one of those tools that you can use, like hiding in car parks. I spend a lot of time hiding in the plaza actually as well, and sitting on the toilet for much longer than I should do. I thought I was helping myself listening to all these podcasts, and I tried many, many different ones to sort of teach me how to be a calmer parent. I think it was a calming parent one I listened to, and it just gave me some time away on my own where I looked like I was doing something.
You know what? You know what they were? They were mini Italies.
They were. Absolutely. They were mini Italies. And I think what we're trying to do as mums is find as many mini Italies as we can throughout our days so that we can sort of reevaluate and reset so we can go straight back into parenting and be on it. Because there's times where my daughter has scratched me, or like something horrible's happened. We've had a massive argument. And then the next minute I'm like, right, let's move on. We have to get over that and we have to move on with our lives. And how was school today? It is these little moments where we find ourselves that give us back that peace as parents, because otherwise we'd just be raging maniacs the whole time, stomping around the house and putting stickers on charts. So we don't want to be those parents. We want to be the fun parent. I want to be the mum that, gets down on her knees and says, it's all right, we're going to do this as a team. And I know that woman lives inside me sometimes. So it's just a matter of finding ways of me digging her out.
Yeah, I love it. And I think one of the realizations I've had over the past year is that with kids or with parenting, there's no bad days. There's you can have a bad 3 minutes, but then it switches up so quick. In the same 10-minute period, you can have the worst time and the best time of your life. It is wild. There's no bad days. There's bad 2 minutes. You think, oh my God, you're in a mood. It's going to be terrible today. And then the next minute they're laughing and joking and doing all the things. It's what? This is you're rug pulling me here, babe. That's
yes.
I always
totally. It's strange, isn't it?
Being rug pulled. It is so strange. Yeah. The wildest thing. And so you touched on it a little bit earlier, but you also tried some things that were more for you than overtly parenting things, like the 5:45 a.m. boot camp. How did exercising and you did rage walks and boxing and those kind of things. When you started to do more things for yourself, do you feel like that also had this ripple effect into making you a better mum?
Absolutely. I think because I was happier, because I had a dopamine rush from doing a boxing class or from, going on a rage walk by myself and getting a few, thoughts off my chest.
Please tell people who don't know what a rage walk is.
A rage walk is like a sort of angry stroll. It is what it says on the box. It's as soon as you've got to make sure your partner's home, there's someone to look after the kids, because you can't just storm out of the gate and just let them fend for themselves.
Yeah, there's hiding and then there's hiding.
There's hiding in the house and then there's hiding on the streets, which is what I do. So I make sure my husband's home and then I'm literally right, I'm out. I used to do it when the kids were babies. You hand them over when the husband got back from work. I'll be right, I'm done. It's your turn.
Yeah.
I'm out. Mm-hmm. So my rage walks are generally just where I walk down the beach in a bit of a huff, don't approach me, and I sort of get a few feelings off my chest through the sand on the beach, or just by looking at a rainbow, or just kind of stomping some energy out of my system. And actually it's a way that I do every day. I take the dog for a walk and just get away from, I think that's basically what we're going to talk about today, is everything.
How to hide from your family.
Everything I'm saying is coming back to me running away from my family.
Wow, I didn't expect this to be so exposing for you, Victoria.
This isn't the message. This isn't the message. Leave. That's the best thing to do. Leave for 5 minutes is what I mean, or perhaps a week occasionally.
Yeah,
and then come back and feel good about the whole thing. But
I do think there's really something in this, though, because I think this also helps to get rid of the mum guilt, because I think there's in this realization of the fact that when you do things for yourself, you become a nicer, better, more capable mother. So it is really important that you do things for yourself. And it's so absolutely screwed that we have to justify the fact that we can do nice things for ourselves through being a better mother, don't get me wrong, fuck the patriarchy. But I think that if you kind of reconcile it within yourself, you feel a lot better about doing these things, and everyone benefits, right?
Yeah, and also what I know now is that it's not the kids that are doing anything wrong. It's me. It's like, it's my responsibility. Do you know what I mean? They're going to do what kids do. They're going to act up. They're going to answer back. They're going to leave towels on the bathroom floor. They're going to do the things that kids do. And all kids are generally the same. Like, they're going to fight back occasionally. They're going to not listen. They don't turn YouTube off. They do the things that kids do. And I think I realized with my shouting and with my, not giving consequences, it was due to my own laziness and my own lack of tools and my own lack of mood regulation and emotion and all of those other things. So it did come down to me to change the way that my house felt. It wasn't my kids. My kids are going to act the same. They are who they are. And it's up to me as their parents to raise them in a way that doesn't turn them into maniacs and murderers. So I think it was my responsibility. And part of that responsibility is that I have to get away occasionally, whether it's for a walk or to a boxing class or to a breathwork class or whatever it might be, to sort of reinvigorate my parenting, then that is only ever going to help. So I do think it is a really good idea to look after, number one, like look after yourself, and then you're going to be able to look after the children in a much better, more positive way. That's what's happened to me anyway, was understanding my fails and then trying to fix myself so that I could fix my house.
And I guess the one of the things that is blatantly obvious for me when I hear mums talk about doing all of this is that dads don't face the same pressure. Like, it's not the same. They don't understand. Then I genuinely believe that you can't, unless you've lived this in your body as a woman or as somebody who can birth kids, like, it's just not the same. It's in no way going to be the same experience for a man. So do you think that in this, like, you came to this realization, okay, I'm shouty, I'm this, I'm that, I'm going to make a change, and you say, oh, it's up to me to decide how my house is run. But do you feel like in doing that, your husband or your kids' dad, and I'm aware that lots of people parent by themselves, do you feel like they also came on board and started to implement their own changes, or do you feel like you've taken this all on as a mum by yourself?
I think I needed to do it more than my husband. He is extremely patient. He's very, very stay-at-home dad. He loves being with the children as much as possible. I think dads don't take on as much generally. I'm, making a sweeping statement there. But, I'm working, I'm socializing, I'm exercising. I've got a lot on my plate. So there's more to manage, I would say. Whereas my husband is very good at managing. He goes to work, he comes back, he's home. He doesn't take on perhaps as much. Men perhaps don't take on as much as women, mentally and physically. Like, I'm always wanting to do more and more and more. I think that's just part of my personality, especially since I gave up drinking, because I'm not preoccupied with going to parties anymore. I want to do stuff. I want to try new hobbies, and I'm, interested in more things, and a brain that's been very dormant for 25 years has kind of been activated. So I kind of need a lot of stuff going on around me. And my husband kind of he sort of bumbles along beside me, wondering why I'm crying 50% of the time. He's kind of like, what's wrong now? Why are you upset about this? And also because I've got young kids. I had my last kid at 42, yet I'm heading into perimenopause right now. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with me compared to my husband. And he just takes everything in his stride. Like, he's the sort of person who, can have a can of Coke before he goes to bed. Like, have
what
5
is that
coffees.
About? My
and
husband's like that.
Yeah, and he can go to the toilet after a long haul flight. He's kind of like just one of those people who just nothing seems to bother him. It's just like water off a duck's back. So yeah, we're completely opposite. And I don't know whether that's because I take on more. Probably. And he doesn't, he's like, why are you doing that? Like, you can't fit that in. I'm like, I'll fit it in. I can do everything. And it's almost like with mums, we've got something to prove a bit. It's like, we can do everything. We can work a full-time job and be extremely successful. Just watch me, so I can do that. I can take on all of these different roles, but it does mean occasionally a therapist has to step in and take control of the situation.
Yeah, I guess because I just don't want to talk about like being a better mum without acknowledging that sometimes that means the dads take on more. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
he
think
steps up. I mean, he totally steps up
and it
because I
sounds
take
like he
on
totally
more.
does. But I just don't want to have this conversation with people listening and be like, well, what's the dad doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's.
Yeah.
I think as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves often because men do step back, and I think that's a hard thing. But obviously that's not what's going on here. But I just want to talk about it. So we talked about mum guilt. But what about the mum rage? Because you talked about like the going on the rage walks and that kind of thing. But not many people talk about the fact that often as a mum you can feel absolutely fucking furious and a rage that you never felt before becoming a mum. Can you talk me through how you feel that and if you found anything that helps?
Yeah, so every mum I've ever spoken to has these moments where this kind of voice comes out, doesn't it? It's a voice that I'd never heard before. And it's a voice that you only use with people that you really love. Because isn't it terrible? I know, because no one else would make you that angry. It's not like a stranger on the street could make you that angry. Although the lady at the passport office does make me quite angry sometimes. That voice would come out with her.
Why are they so mean?
Yeah, the forms are never right, are they? So I don't know where that comes from, but it boils within me. And I have become so much better at it since I started writing and since I gave up alcohol and since I wrote this book, actually, because I'm so much more aware of that voice. And I know that voice makes me feel sad. I know it makes my children feel sad. I know it doesn't solve anything. It's usually when I'm in a hurry. And I now know that being in a hurry doesn't solve anything. It just makes people go slower. So it's part of this learning process is knowing and listening to that voice and going, how is this helping anybody? It's making me feel terrible. I know this is not who I am. So why don't I change it? And it's been a real eye opener to be conscious of my own behaviors for the first time. I think before I was doing all these actions and behaving in ways that probably weren't acceptable. And now I'm fully aware and conscious of what I'm doing all the time. So I'm like, okay, I've gone to the voice, but now I need to go, okay, sorry guys, this isn't right. Let's reset. Let's start again. Where are your shoes? Where's your school bag? Like, let's just get into the car. And I'm able to sort of counteract my behavior a little bit. I'm not saying it's perfect all the time. It most certainly is not, but I'm able to understand when it's not helpful and know that it doesn't make me feel good. And actually, sometimes I used to have that voice where it would end up hurting my throat. I would shout so loudly. I'm like, who is that? I never had that voice before I had children. I had awful boyfriends and things like that. And there might have been a bit of a slanging match or a shoe on the head or something like that. But things like that don't happen in parenting. And it's strange and it's disappointing, actually. It's been disappointing for me to know that I have that within me. And I think that is a huge part of the guilt and shame of when you lose the plot as a mum, especially if you're in the bloody middle of coals or something. And, you know, there's kids running off in different directions and it's all going on. And you're that mum for the moment. You're the mum that everyone's looking at and like, what's wrong with her? Why has she not got it together? And the voice comes out.
Everyone's been that mum.
Everyone, but why does everybody stare at you like you're a terrible person then? If everyone's been that mum, just come up to me and say, are you all right? You know, can I give you a bar of chocolate?
And that's what I do now when I see people dealing with stuff like that. I'm like, you are doing an amazing job because I have been there. It's so hard. It's so hard. And I think the other thing is that in feeling that is that I don't think you should feel guilty about feeling that you have that voice within you or disappointed because I think the stakes have never been this high. Right? That's what makes parenting so hard is that you feel like you cannot fail at this because if you fail at this, you're failing your children. And that really, nothing has ever mattered as much as this and nothing will ever matter as much as this in your entire life. Like the stakes have been turned up so much that sometimes you're in such a state of panic that things are getting away from you and that the stakes are so high that you go into complete like actual beast mode and that's where that voice comes from. So I don't think you should feel bad about that. I think you should feel like it's and I'm not to say that you should do it, but I'm just saying that I think that sometimes the reason why we get to that point is because we give a shit, like we actually care so much, you know.
Yeah, and it's also maybe you're right. Like we could normalize that a little bit more and say like, there's nothing really wrong with that. Like we are going to lose our shit sometimes. It's hard. So unfortunately that voice does come out sometimes, you know, when we're running late and the bell's about to go and everyone's, you know, still not ready. That's when it happens for me. It's like that preschool shit show between 7 and 8 o'clock where, you know, we're all sort of falling apart, aren't we? We're trying to get everyone. It's a lot to get 3 people ready in the morning and yourself and get everybody out the door and get the right lunches and get everything out of packets and, you know, all of these rules that we put upon ourselves more than anything else to go like, I don't want to be judged. So therefore I need to get everything to be perfect. Whereas if we accepted and normalized our imperfections a little bit, maybe things would become a bit easier.
Yeah. So perfectionism is something that you definitely didn't find that worked. What else would you, like, if anybody was about to dip their toe into the water of something that they thought might possibly make them a better parent, what would you absolutely warn them off? What really didn't work?
Oh gosh, there's so many things that I tried. I mean, I think the things that didn't work ended up working as well, funnily enough, because I worked out what was right and what was wrong for me. One of the things I tried to do was to lose weight because I've always struggled a little bit with my weight. And I thought that maybe I'd go on a diet and, you know, that would make me sort of a better role model for my children.
No.
So I learned very quickly that the language that I was using, these are my mistakes. Like I'm being totally honest with you here.
Oh yeah, no,
and
I appreciate it.
I was like it was really hard for me to change my vocabulary around my body. And I realized halfway through that year that I was talking about myself and my food intake in a very negative way in front of my children. I was always on a diet. I was a yo-yo dieter. I'd be keto one week, paleo the next week, sending my husband to buy loads of weird foods because that's the diet that I was on. And I found it really sad when my daughter came up to me and said, "Oh, Mummy, am I fat?" And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? You know, what have I've used a lot wrong. I've been talking about my body in front of my kids and that's not the right thing to do. So when things have gone wrong, it's actually, and not worked, which was me going on a diet, I've actually been able to go, okay, I need to change the way I talk about myself as well. It's not just about them and the topics that I'm discussing with them. It's actually, I need to be nicer to myself around them. And it was such an easy thing to change that, I realize. I was like, okay, I've got to stop being a dick about myself because otherwise I'm going to teach my children to be a dick about themselves. And that's not the right thing to do. So I've changed my vocabulary around my body. You know, I can say like, look at my amazing body. I carried my children in here and look how strong and healthy I am. So I've really tried to, I reached a low when my daughter came in and said that to me, like, Mummy, is my body okay? Or do I look fat? And I was like, oh gosh, this is my fault. I know when I'm failing and I can go, okay, I'm going to change this. It doesn't always take a course or somebody else to step in all the time. Sometimes it's just a situation that arises where I go, right, this is not okay what I'm doing. And I'm going to make a real effort to change it. And now I've changed my vocabulary around that. I'm much more cautious about the words that I use about myself. I try and say, you look beautiful. I look beautiful. It's what inside that matters. And I'm just really trying to change my household from being, you know, any sort of negative self-talk, which is hard all the time because of the influences outside. But to try and keep my house a safe place to talk about our bodies in a good way is all I can do, really.
Well done, you. I'm very, very impressed by that. I love it. And do you think that in the last year, in trying to become a better parent, you have also become a better parent to yourself?
Oh, wow. Absolutely. Great question. Yes, I have learned to be much kinder to myself, which means in turn, I'm much kinder to my children. And I've learned what I enjoy. I learn that I'm more patient and that I can spend time, you know, without devices and, you know, doing craft and trying to get my head around it. I think I spent so much time saying no to things just because I thought it was easier and because I was being lazy and switching the television on when it probably should have been on off hours ago. So yeah, it's been a real learning curve about who I am as well as who my children are going to be. And I think having time on devices and knowing the difference between work time and play time has also been a massive, huge, probably the biggest lesson of them all throughout the book, was that I realized my work was, I was prioritizing my work over my children. And every time they came up to me when I got back from school, I was like, I've got a podcast to do, I've got to finish this article. And I was, I've got a lot on, and it was seeping into my family in the evenings as well. I felt like I had to finish everything all the time. So that was one of the major changes that I made throughout the year, was to turn off and to know my work time and my child time, and be able to separate who I am in work mode and who I am as a mum. And that was just another thing that I learned. So that all of it, the amalgamation of all of these things happening to me, made me understand that, my fails make me who I am, and my imperfections are what I embrace about myself. But also those ripple out throughout my family. And if I can just be happy with myself, happy mum is going to make for a happy family. And that has been the real lesson, I think, from everything that I've done in the past year. It's just that I do keep coming back, and I do keep learning. I'm interested in learning about life and about growing. I think it's kind of like self-helpy a little bit, which I hate to say, but learning about myself has been what's enabled me to be a better mum. But I will say that at the end of the book, I was supposed to be kind of the protagonist of like, look, she's become this earth mother, and look how she's changed and how wonderful she is. But at the end, what I learn is that it's just that I keep trying. And I keep failing, but I do keep trying. And that's my message to all mums, is like, you will always come back. If you love your kids, that unconditional love is going to be enough for you to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep trying. And I think that's all we can do.
Oh, absolutely. And so if anybody's listening to this and they're at that point where they think, I am just being the mum that I do not want to be, where would you encourage them to start with this themselves? If they want to kind of take inspiration from your year of mumming, what would be the starting point, or the thing that you would urge them to do that might kind of get the ball rolling like that parenting course did for you?
I think to normalize that feeling, like we said, I think that's actually a really good point. Like, to normalize that feeling, like good days, bad days, Yeah. This is a good day. Tomorrow will be a bad day, and the next day will be another good day. Like, it can feel 50-50 like that sometimes. And I know that sounds like a long haul of 50% of your life feeling a bit crappy. It's only for 18 years. But no, I do think like normalizing that feeling instead of feeling guilty about it is a really good place to start, and go, look, it's okay to feel like that, but perhaps it means it's time for you to reach out and make some changes, which is exactly what I did. And it will be different for everybody else than it was for me. I tried all sorts of things in that year, but you might find something really early on. It might be a Reiki class, or going and doing crochet, or doing something for yourself that fulfills you in a way that's going to lift your mood. And I think that's what it can be about sometimes. Like the dredge of motherhood, it does feel like you're in the trenches a lot of the time, and maybe finding some things that you do for yourself. And whether that's therapy, that I include that in there, somebody else to talk to about the ups and downs of motherhood is going to be one of the best things you can ever do for yourself. Whether that's you're struggling with, alcohol perhaps, or whether you're struggling with shouting, no matter what it is, having input from an outside source, for me personally, has been one of the best things that I've normalized within my own life. To just go, every time I feel like I'm failing, I go to the doctors and say, I'm struggling right now. And I've spoken to my husband about it. We've had these family meetings, but I'm having anxiety because I feel like I'm failing as a mum. That is a perfectly rational reason to go to the doctors and get some therapy, because all that's going to do, it might feel awkward at the beginning to say that to someone, or even to a mate, that I'm struggling as a mum and this isn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. That means that you're going to get some answers. And so whether it's your mate, your husband, a best friend, whoever it is, or a therapist, therapist, I think my best advice is to talk to someone about it and get it out there, and don't suffer through this alone, because that's what this book is for. It's to say, look, we're all in this together. We all struggle some days, and that's okay, but let's talk about it, and let's get together and make it okay for us to struggle sometimes.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Victoria. I really think this is incredibly helpful. And if you're listening to this, I think I would urge you to just think, what is the tiniest thing that I can do today? What's the tiny thing? And it might just be Googling something. It might be looking something up. And what's the tiniest thing that you can do today to start that ball rolling? Because I think once you start to do that, life kind of takes on a momentum of its own, and you don't have to push so hard. Just do the tiniest thing that you can do today to come back to yourself. And I think that's going to make a massive difference. Thank you so much, Victoria. I really appreciate it. What a brilliant conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
How good's Victoria? I knew you were going to love her. She's great, isn't she? Her book is out now. It's called Mumming. You can find it via the link in the show notes. And you can also find Victoria's other work around sobriety and where to find her on social media in there too. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're enjoying the episodes so far and you've found some value in the content that I'm creating, please leave me a review wherever you're listening. It really buoys me and propels me on to make more helpful stuff for you. Also, you're probably going to want to subscribe and follow the podcast, because next week I've got an absolute ripper episode coming out for you. If you are one of those people, like I was, who feels like you never quite get the job, like you're always down to the last two, or you never quite get the interview and you've applied for loads and you just don't know where you're going wrong, you can't seem to nail your resume, and you've got the skills, you've got the qualifications, you're a great fit for the team, but you just can't seem to get a shoe in. Well, this lady is a resume whisperer, an interview expert, and she's going to tell you where you're going wrong. If you feel like you've got the capabilities, but it's like the technicalities of how to get the job that you're struggling with, how to play the game, she's going to tell you how, and help you stop going wrong, and also just save you from that soul destroying thing of just applying for countless jobs and getting so many knockbacks. So make sure you subscribe, because that's going to be a great episode next week. Okay, I'm Ed Stott. I sincerely hope that's helpful.